Right, welcome to a new day and yet another video. So today it's going to be on the 700 diesel rebuild, not the 550 XR. This has been apart for some time now. So the story on this is we bought it really quite cheap. Then we spent quite a lot on it, doing suspension bushes. As you can see, all these bushes we renewed. We did ball joints on it, as you can see. We did track rods on it. We did a cam belt on it. We did a water pump on it, all the fluid changes, we did an alternator belt, we did loads of stuff on it. We powder coated the racks, put a new rear master cylinder on for the back brake, all new brake pads, we bled all the brakes through again obviously. We did a lot of stuff to this, that's not covering it all by no explanation. But then it got rod knock, so we put new shells in it. But the rod knock was better, but it was still there. So we ascertained that the crank was no good. We were going to then grind the crank, but it was found to be out of tolerance. So now we purchased a brand new crank, but that came from Italy, so it's taken several weeks. As you can see, I've already been at it for a couple of hours. I've cleared the garage completely. The 550 XR is now outside, and I've mopped and hoovered the floor to avoid dust getting everywhere. Here's our new crank. Genuine from Kohler. This was £600 alone. Today I'm only going to, as I say, I've already been at it for a couple of hours, so I'm only going to focus on getting the crank alone in. I think I need to get some piston clips because I can't find the ones I've purchased anywhere, so I might have to get some new ones. But I'm not going to do any more than that. I'm going to take my time because although I've done plenty of top end rebuilds, I've not done that many bottom end rebuilds. And the price of the parts is something like £1,400 that I've spent, so it needs to work. Else I'll be severely out of pocket. The new crank comes with a new set of shells, which I've already put in the crank supports. This is the one for the oil pump side. This is the one for the opposite side. And this is the centre one. Here's our oil pump, which I've also cleaned up. Them scratches are already on it. I don't know where they're from. Presumably it's been off in the past. Here's the seal section for the other side. All these shells are already in. There's our new rod bearing shells. They don't organise these, it's all in the package, so you have to sort of organise them yourself, but it's not too hard. That's a new keyway, I believe, for the oil pump. And that's a new keyway for the timing belt cog. All these shells here, these three are the corresponding shells for these supports that go on the block. And these are supports for the outside. I've not quite looked at those just yet, so I have to have a look in the manual and sort them out. But I've also got new seals to go in here that I'll have to fit, and I've got new paper gaskets for the back sides. So now I'm going to fire up my manual, and we'll have a look at actually installing this crank, so I'll be back in a minute. Right, so I guess it's update time. This is actually the following day, because I had to go and pick up that, which you'll see in a soon video. But the crank is now in. It was actually quite easy, to be fair. As you can see, it's in nice, spinning as it should. All is well. To say it was quite easy, except from it was a right pain to hold that up by myself while also trying to install it. I guess really it would have been easy to set the engine out to do it, but as you can see, it's all in there nice, brand new crank. So I've just cleaned all these surfaces, ready to install more components. As you can see over here, I've got our oil pump, which I've just installed a fresh seal in. This seal was 60 quid, believe it or not. But that's nice and installed. The seal has been soaking in oil, so it went in nice and easy. And this is a cover plate for that flywheel side, which I've also installed the new sealing, which is another 60 quid. So I've got £120 worth of seals here. Isn't that insane? So now all I've got to do for this is install the gasket on both of these and get them installed. Once I've got them installed, I will be putting all the CVT clutching back together. So I've got to put the secondary clutch back on, the primary clutch back on, and the belt. So that's the objective of today, because I can't go any further because I still haven't got my piston clips in. I think this video is probably going to be uploaded today once I've done all this, because it'll probably be about a 15-minute, 10-minute video, something like that. and then there'll be a second part doing the rest of the engine. Oh yeah, and I'm going to get that alternator bracket and alternator back installed today. So basically I'm going to complete the bottom end except from obviously the pistons, rods and the sump, because I needed the sump off to put the pistons and rods back in. So yeah, I'm going to crack on with this and I'll be back once I've completed it. Right, so this is going to be the last update for this video. It's still reasonably early in the day, but it's absolutely hammering outside. It's getting really soaking and cold in here. So I think I've had enough today, and I've come to a point where I can't really do much more. It's been fairly slow going, to be honest. The crank is back in, as I showed you earlier. That seal thing, case thing that goes on this side is back on. The flywheel's back on. Primary clutch is back on. Secondary clutch is back on. The belt's back on. That all took quite a long time because the one-way bearing in there is like 2 bearings with the one-way teeth in the middle, and that was an absolute nightmare to get back on. I ended up having to disassemble it, grease it all up and get it back on because it was dry, and it took me about an hour and a half just to do that alone, which is a bit of a pain, to be honest. My oil pump is also back on the other side, as you can see down there, but it had something of an oil leak from that side before, which I naturally assumed was the crank seal, but unfortunately if you look at the actual pump, I didn't notice this before, but it became more apparent when I was bolting it back on, and there's the stresses all over it. It's got a crack running right down the centre there, so that's where it was leaking oil. Thankfully, I've just purchased all the parts for the 500 XR, or 550, and the chap I had them off had a used good 700 diesel oil pump he sold me for quite reasonable money. So thank you to him, although he probably won't watch this video, I highly doubt. So that should be it sometime next week, at the same time as the piston clips, which I'm also getting from him. It should in theory be pretty plain sailing from now on. The difficult part is done. I've done the top end once before, when we did the shells, and I've put the sump on once before and taken it off, etc. So there shouldn't be any more gasket surfaces to clean, which is what takes the time. And things to look up in the manual, because as I say, I've done it all before. So yeah, I think that will be the end of this video. There'll be one more video on this, assembling the rest of the bottom end and the top end, and then getting it to actually run. And then there may be another video after that of actually using it and going over it. I'm not sure which one we're going to keep long term. We only want one big full-size bike to keep. It'll either be this or it'll be the 500 XR. I'm tempted to keep both in a way, but I cannot decide which one. The diesel I like because it's diesel and it's just a bit cool, but the 550 XR is obviously much quicker, and it's also PLG road legal, so I can take it on the road anywhere, whereas this is pretty dodgy driving it on the road. You shouldn't really do it, especially if you haven't got insurance on it, which is possible to get without a registration. So if we keep this, we can't really ride it on the road, but if we keep the XR, we can ride it on the road. So a bit of a decision to make, really. One or the other will be up for sale. I mean, this will have a basically new engine and new everything, really. That's the other trouble. If you sell this one, we'll probably make a loss on it, quite a big loss, because all the work we've put into it, and that's not counting all the time. But yeah, so this will be the end of this video. There'll be one coming up shortly on that. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one.